Hello, my friends. This is The Art of Prepping. Thanks for joining me today. I just want to go over a list of various professions that would be very advantageous during and after an SHTF event. These are people that you'd want to surround yourself with or to become part of your preparedness group. Of course, there's a lot of ideal things that could be, but typically are not. And so this is something that when you're putting together a preparedness group, a prepper group per se, you may want to be aware of the skills and the abilities of each member. It wouldn't make a lot of sense if you had a group of preppers and they were all office workers and they had no other skills but to run copiers and to do spreadsheets and to create graphs. To do PowerPoint presentations. That wouldn't go very well in a survival situation. You would need more skills than that. So you'd want to bring in other types of people into your group. And that's what this list is all about. So I worked diligently to put together a list to be as comprehensive as possible in a short video format. But if I did miss a profession or two that is, in your opinion, critical or important to be in a preparedness group, feel free to include it in the comment section below. The first category would be medical, health, and that could be obviously any doctor per se. But for me personally, I would like to have a homeopathic doctor, an herbalist, a surgeon, an ER doctor with experience, a nurse, midwife, dentist. Man, these all would be excellent. The next category would deal with security and any type of law enforcement for the group or within the group. Any type of veteran military person, long-standing police officer. It could be even a very experienced security guard or security officer, a long-standing member of the community, even as someone who has just been doing neighborhood watch. That would be better than nothing, but it would be pretty awesome to have someone with a lot of experience that knew tactics, that knew weapons, that knew the area, and that knew how to deal with people and how to train people to better themselves when it comes to being able to defend themselves. And so this, to me, is a very important aspect of the group security. You can't really say this is something that is expendable, because if you can't keep the group safe, then there is no group, because the group could be pillaged and basically, outside threats have an open door. And we have to always be mindful to safeguard our families and our children in particular, as well as our preparedness preps, supplies. And so this is something that really needs to be kind of looked at. In fact, ahead of any type of main event, there should be training that goes on a continuous basis in a preparedness group. And these tactics, firing weapons, figuring out how to be more low-key and increase your awareness in everyday life. There's so many skills when it comes to this. That's why having someone with a lot of experience, especially in the military, how great would it be to have someone that was like a retired ranger, or someone that's was in a SEAL team or something like that. The likelihood of you having that is very low, but even if you just have someone that served a few years in the regular Army infantry, that's going to be a lot more advanced than the average civilian. The next category is an experienced individual that knows how to farm. Maybe it's a gardener. I know people personally that are master gardeners, and these people can grow pretty much anything. They're very knowledgeable people. And you also have to include ranchers as well. If you live in an area that has land that can support various types of animals. With these animals, though, you're also going to have to pair together someone that knows how to butcher the animals. So often we forget that person. That person will not, in the very beginning, be necessary or even needed. But once we start to take animals out of the herd, we're going to need someone that actually really knows what to do with those animals and how to maximize processing those animals. Next is the home builder. You could also sub that in with an engineer, even though there's a lot of different types of engineers, and not all engineers know how to build a home, but they have the thinking ability to probably put this together. Just like an architect. An architect may not know completely how to build all types of structures, but they are well versed in how structures are put together and what are the details of how all this works. And so that, and then you have a lot more specialties like stonemasons and so forth. And so these people are very valuable. They have a lot of practical knowledge that can be used in the physical world. I would also say that the plumber, the electrician, blacksmith, carpenter, those types of people as well would be in high demand to make tools to build part of the infrastructure back up that's torn down, depending on how bad the disaster. People with these types of skills, even though they're very specific, can give a lot to a group and to a community. These people are going to be prized. People who know what they're doing and that can put the infrastructure back into place will be the heroes of the day. Next is the mechanic. If you think about maintaining your vehicles or small engines, doing repairs to get you back on the road, you know, the mechanic is the one that does it, and if you don't know how to do it yourself. And so it's not going to be pretty much reserved to small engines and passenger vehicle engines and vehicles, but also larger, heavy machinery. People are going to be needed to maintain those, to repair those. The mechanic will be a very important person. Not so much maybe during an SHTF event, but especially in the rebuilding phase after. What about mental health? There's going to be a lot of trauma, especially after a large disaster. Some type of counselor, a mental health therapist, whatever you want to call them, they will pretty much be in demand. Now, this is not going to be as obvious because when you think of getting someone in your group that has value or has things to offer, you don't typically think about mental health right off the bat because you're more concerned about injury and is there someone that can keep me alive, or someone that can grow food, or someone that can make repairs, someone that can keep us safe. But if you don't have good mental health, you're not going to be able to function as well than if you could. And this is a big problem. A lot of people overlook getting help in their life when they have problems. And if you have someone in the group that can identify that you have a problem and help you work through it, wow, that's going to be a lot more beneficial than to suppress a lot of feelings that you don't know what to do with, or confusion and or grief, because there will be a lot of things that we'll see and or experience during and after an SHTF event. You will probably lose loved ones and or maybe you'll be injured yourself. There's a lot of things to work through, as well as just losing property and or having to go through to be a witness to horrific events that you may have not even thought it was possible before the SHTF. Another type of profession that gets overlooked is the seamstress, the tailor, and the clothes maker. Man, in a more long-term SHTF event, these people are going to be very valuable. It may not be that apparent in the first few weeks or even the first few months, but this type of person could also be used in your barter and trade with other groups because they could make things that are needed, especially in colder climates or in any climate really. You're going to need clothes, and clothes wear out after a while. During an SHTF event, you're going to probably be doing things that are much more strenuous, and you're going to put a lot more wear and tear on your clothing. But it goes even beyond clothing. There's a lot of other things that a seamstress, someone that knows how to work with material and fabric, can do. They could even help construct shelters. I mean, think about tents that are made of canvas or a nylon. These things can be created if you have the raw materials. So the potential is there to do a lot more than just to make clothes. It's kind of funny when you talk to people and you ask them, oh, can you cook? And they're like, yeah, I can cook real well. And then you go over to their house and they cook you a meal, and even though they made themselves off like a gourmet chef, you find out that their cooking is horrible. And this would be really a bad thing to have in a prepper group, especially if you have 50 to 100 people and the person or persons making food for the group, because you do want to delegate out different types of responsibilities, and you would probably have on rotation people who would cook. You wouldn't want something that would be almost inedible. You want something that the palate can actually digest. And so you'd want people who actually knew how to cook, to take basic raw ingredients and to make things that actually are good to consume. And so this is something that people really don't think about. They think about, I'll just put something together, whenever I get hungry, and I'm not going to worry about, looking for someone that would be the dedicated person for cooking. But this is not really the best approach. Having a chef can do a lot of things for the group, and not just morale, but maybe also to be more efficient when using the resources. If you're really more of an amateur, you're going to probably waste a lot of food, and there will probably be some people who won't even eat the food. So instead of wasting it and being less efficient with those ingredients, have someone that knows actually how to use those ingredients. Now, depending on how large your group size is and your location in the world, I really personally think, especially when you get over like 60 to 70 people in your group, to have a group scribe. And that scribe is more like someone that documents what's going on that day. Kind of like takes notes. And they can have other duties as well and responsibilities in the group, but someone that really maintains a log on the goings on in the group for just research purposes and to look back in case something happened. It would even be a bigger bonus if that person or there is another person in the group could translate languages in the area. For example, if you live in the USA, if you could also understand and translate like Spanish, for example, because there's so many people who speak Spanish in America, it makes a lot of sense to actually have a few people in your group at least to know other languages that you may run into. Your group may run into a group of Spanish-speaking people or Mexican-speaking people, however you want to say, Espanol. And if you can't communicate, you may not be able to do barter and trade. Or there could be a misunderstanding and you have a gunfight over something silly that was not even necessary. So it's good to have someone that is available to dialogue in different ways by understanding the written language and the verbal language of other types of people in your area. It's also good and wise to think about a merchant or someone that is fluent in trading goods. And that is another skill. For a long time, I was into this profession as a part-time job, doing barter and trade. And it took me a long time to get good at it. And so this kind of person, though, would give you the best opportunities to acquire goods at fair value and to maximize the goods that you have in terms of what you could get for it. And so there's just a lot of things that are not understood very well when it comes to these kind of people. These people, though, really can access other types of resources because they know where to go and, of course, how to get it. So these people should not be underestimated or minimized in your group. If anything, it might even be good to have several of these because you may have to send them out to do a recon and or just to see what other groups in the area may have to barter and trade with. And so these people could be almost ambassadors, liaisons for your group because they have the skills to negotiate what you need. What about the occupational or physical therapist? This does go back to medical, but it's a different type of medical, when you're trying to recover from an injury. People will get hurt in your group trying to do things for the group so they have the better odds of survival. And it's going to really be good, besides just the doctor and the nurses, to keep you alive, to have someone that's going to help you get better, outside of the mainstream or the alternative medicine realm. Someone that's going to give you some instructions on how to rebuild your body. There's going to be a lot of kids potentially in a group. Not always. There are some groups that there are no kids. But realistically speaking, there's going to be families in preparedness groups, prepper groups. And these kids need instruction. They need to have some type of structure in their day, and they need to be taught and shown, and they have to learn to grow. And to have teachers of the appropriate type for the age groups of the people in your group, it's going to be very helpful. Even if you're not lucky enough to get a teacher that specializes in that particular age group, at least they are well versed in how to teach. And so I think that's going to be very important. Now, if you say, hey, my group doesn't have any kids, do we need a teacher? Maybe not, but you may come into contact with other groups that have families and kids, and they may need a teacher, and you may use that as a means to barter and trade services for other things. It's just something to have. You can really never have too much skill in your group. Now, a historian, especially a local historian, is also going to be very valuable, just like a teacher, for the fact that they're going to have a lot of insight on the local resources and the different people in the area. They're going to probably know a lot about the families, and they're going to have done a lot of research on who lives where and what do they have. Do they have large farms that typically grow this type of food? Or this is where various types of reserves of this product or raw material typically is found. Some of these people know a lot about the geology of the area. Some of them more about the people. And so you might want to really listen to these people as well. They have a lot of insight about how things work in that area. What about a separate category for the dedicated prepper, the actual skilled prepper? Even though this is a prepper group, there are some people who are much more of a prepper than others. And we kind of know that if you're in a group already. This is also going to include survivalists. There's different types of survivalists, different levels of intensity. Just like with bushcrafters, outdoors people in general, like hunters and scouts. Everyone's not the same. And to have a handful of dedicated, and I don't want to say hardcore, but more serious outdoors and prepper, survivalist, bushcrafting type of individuals, they're going to bring to the table a lot more than those who just do it on the side as a hobby. And you will find a lot of people in prepper groups that are doing it as a hobby. And they may be serious on some level, but there's other people who are much more serious. So they're going to be bringing skills to the table, how to overcome challenges in a much more concrete way than the amateur. So having these individuals are going to be very important. I mean, you definitely need these people in your group. These people can also make great leaders. And talking about leadership, we need to have a couple of people that are responsible for organizing the group. That's just how people are. Humans need someone to lead them because there are different personality types, as we talked about on the channel. And those people that aren't natural leaders need someone to follow. And so having the main leader and someone that is going to be available if the main leader is compromised or not available is going to be very important. And so it depends on the personalities most likely in the group of who that's going to be, more so than just what kind of skills they have. But they can go hand in hand. This next person is a little bit controversial. And not every group would want to have one of these people. Then there's other people who may want to have several of these, just depending on how the group is made up. And that's going to be a religious figure, someone that maybe is a religious leader or someone that is well versed. And to make it more concrete, maybe like a priest or a preacher or a monk or whatever it is that the group and the entirety is under the belief system of. And of course, the group could be very diverse. You may have an atheist and then a Catholic and then a Buddhist and a Hindu. And it may not be that practical to have someone represented for every belief. But it's up to the group if that's something that is important. It just kind of happens, though, that there's a lot of Christian preachers, believe it or not. There's a lot of Christian preachers that are into being prepared. So there could be that type of a natural occurrence that they're just already in the group. You don't even have to look for them. So this is something, of course, is up to you. And sometimes the group leader is the religious leader because they're just natural leaders. That's just type of personality that they have. So it's not that surprising when you start looking around to find, for example, Christian preachers in particular that happen to be prepping group leaders. So just know that that's kind of an occurrence that happens quite often. The last category is the entertainer. In my opinion, it would be awesome to have someone that can tell stories, a storyteller and or a comedian to help relieve the stress levels in the group. In life, you need balance. And what better way to have a balance in a stressful situation than to have a stress relieving mechanism through entertainment? And so it gives you a moment to kind of step away from the problems that you're into and to have a few laughs and to be totally consumed and absorbed into a drama or a story that has a good ending or that you can learn from. Storytellers and entertainers, by their very nature, typically are really good teachers. And they could also be good leaders as well because people look up to them and they respect them, typically speaking. And they also can demand your attention when they want to. So they have a lot of skills working for them as a leader. But even if they're not your leader, they can at least give you the sense of relief and a means of relief by channeling a lot of your stress away from other people in the group and from, the illnesses that can happen when you hold things in and you don't express your emotions. And so these people working hand in hand with the counselors could provide a lot of needed relief and help and insight in situations, especially if they're very crafty and insightful people. So this concludes the list. As always, thanks for coming along. You guys take care.